Z has already replaced baby boomers in the marketplace. And in 5 to 7 years, they're going to replace Xers and millennials. And they are, again, like I said, the largest population in human history. So there's a tidal wave coming to the workplace. And if you're an employer out there listening to this, or you're going to be an employer and you don't understand this, that Gen Z is the first generation in human history to have mental health as their #1 New Year's resolution. Think about that. That's like my applause to your generation, because man, when I was in high school in the 70s, no one talked about this stuff. And if you did, you were mental, you know. You're an athlete, dude. You play basketball, football, you tough guy, can't cry. It's like things have really shifted, and I like the fact we're talking about it more, but it's getting worse. But I sat in that parking lot after my assembly in tears. And I just said, I pulled the mirror down. I just said, dude, you've got the worst story of anybody I've ever heard, because your story's all full of fear and sad and dread and despair and devastation. I'm like, time to step your game up. So that's where I decided I didn't want to be prevention anymore. So I shifted and moved to empowerment. So we're an empowered youth mental wellness app. That's what Brightn is. And instead of being angry fentanyl dad, now I'm not out there trying to tell kids not to do anything. I share my story, but not out of fear.
One thing I'll say right now, it sounds like the difference between a story that's full of fear and a story that is inspiring is a story that's full of fear is about something that happened to you, and an inspiring story is what you did about it. Leaders to unpack their journeys, explore key challenges, and talk about how they're shaping the future of behavioral health and healthcare technology. I'm your host, Sean Rickenbacker, and today we're spotlighting a topic that's as personal as it is urgent: how we can reach people before they're in crisis, and what it takes to truly move mental health care upstream. Our guest today is Jeffrey Johnston, the founder and CEO of Brightn, a digital platform designed to help young people take charge of their mental wellness before they reach the point of needing traditional treatment. Jeff has turned his personal story into a mission to help families and young people build resilience early, so fewer lives are lost to preventable struggles. He's a published author, a speaker, podcast host, tireless advocate for early intervention, and through Brightn, he's blending personal experience with digital innovation to create daily mental health habits that actually stick. Jeff, thanks again for joining us here. Let's start by hearing your story in your own words. How did this journey begin, and what brought you to the mission that you're leading today?
Yeah, it's great to see you again. It was just a little while ago. I saw you at the first Pathways to Innovation conference in beautiful Oklahoma City. That's crazy how things just kind of come full circle, you know? I think back to where this journey started for me and where it's evolved today, and everything in between. Even though there's a tremendous amount of chaos and unfortunate circumstances, there's a ton of beauty, a ton of like justice, I guess. You know, it's like the universe, you keep doing the right thing over and over and over, and eventually, you know, the universe will take care of you some way, right? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think what I'll do is just give a Reader's Digest version. I would not give the long-winded version of the whole story, but basically, I'm currently 59 years old, and at 50 is really when things took a detour in my life. I say detour as in I always have a choice. I always can choose, you know, anger, hatred, and despair, or I could choose love, hope, and empathy. And those are choices that we all have every day, whether you're battling alcoholism or you're battling grief and trauma. You still have a choice. No one's going to force you to tell a narrative in your mind that you don't have to tell. And so on that particular day, it was October 4th, 2016. I was getting ready to take my middle son to a golf tournament for districts. And at the time at 50, Sean, my family consisted of my wife, Prudence, married 21 years, my son, Seth, who was 23, and then Ian was 15, Roman was 13. And so I was running a wealth management firm. We were managing like $800 million of assets under management. We were a good sized boutique firm here in Iowa, in the Midwest. So I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's where I'm doing this, in the studio of my basement right now. And you know, at that particular day, again, running this wealth management company, had a TV show, we had a radio show, thriving, successful financial services company, big house, fast car, traveling the world. I'm setting you up, obviously, for for what was to come next. Because the reality was all that was an illusion, man. All of it was a trapping that I fell into in my 20s and 30s, that I thought money would be that thing that would give me a sense of purpose in my life. Money gave me the ability to do lots of things, but the goal isn't to be the richest man in the graveyard, is it? You know, you have to kind of remember that as you go through life and you bury friends and you watch people have unhealthy relationships with things. You got to look inwards and figure out, am I going to repeat that? And so on that day, I got the call that every parent dreads, and we became members of a club that we didn't ask to join, and one that we can never leave. And that's the parents of a deceased child. And our oldest son, Seth, was 23, lost his fight with addiction and substance abuse, substance misuse. And it was fentanyl that took his life, but it was the road he was on was the pathway of destruction. Fentanyl's getting the blame, but if it wasn't fentanyl, it was bound to be something else. So I've given up my hatred towards things like that. Even the drug dealer that sold my son drugs, I mean, had a family to feed. He had bills to pay. I mean, I understand the game. I'm not going to hate my way out of changing the world. Certainly I want him to pay the consequences for what he did, or she. But to be mad at these things isn't going to make me a better person, right? Anger just feeds on more anger and creates despair. And that's the world my son lived in for a long time. So I'm trying to really stay out of that. And so, after Seth died, I did a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, told my business partner I needed to stay home for about a year and a half to work on my mental health, because what people didn't know, Sean, preceding my son's death, our son's death, I had been an alcoholic since 18, 32 years, heavy drinker, never had an urge to drink until like 5:00, but it was go time when I drank, 3 or 4, 5, 6 beers, a bottle of expensive Cabernet, go to bed, get up, work my ass off all day, Wall Street type mindset, drink, go to bed, just repeat the cycle. And most things in life are fine until they're not.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're driving your car 100 miles an hour down the highway is fine until you hit someone and kill somebody. It's not. It's like all these things that we do, we get away with. And then all of a sudden it happens. You're like, oh, you're shocked and stunned. It's like, no, it was inevitable, And so, I realized after about a year and a half that staying home, that my alcoholism was getting worse. I was getting drunker every day. And then my wife as well. She was 9 years younger than me. She's the love of my life. I kind of noticed out of the corner of my eye that she was self-destructing as well. So I made the decision on December 24th of 17 to stop drinking alcohol. I'm very careful how I phrase this, because it's not giving up alcohol. That implies a sacrifice. I didn't sacrifice anything. I got my life back.
Yeah.
So you don't give up alcohol. You get your life back.
Yeah.
So give up alcohol sounds like you're held powerless to this thing called alcohol. That's BS. I don't care if it's a disease or a choice. I just don't drink. It doesn't matter to me. And I could sit and argue with the doctor all day long and say, oh, it's a disease. You're held powerless to this. You have to surrender. You do. I don't have to. Maybe it is a disease. I just don't have to drink. I think to me, for Jeff Johnston, it became a cop-out for me to blame it on a disease. And I don't know enough to know all that. And I just know this pathway journey is really about your own pathway. And so, Sean, if you need to go to AA, if you need to go to church, if you need to go to the gym, who am I to tell you, right? And if I need to buy an RV and drive around the United States for 20,000 miles, or I need to do a podcast, or I need to start an app and spend my retirement, then so be it, right? And so I'm finding this wonderful community in the recovery community and the grief community, where there's just all these neat, creative ways how people live to tomorrow. But it's not about just surviving, because surviving is no way to live. And you can't thrive until you get past surviving. You just can't. If you're always worried about yourself putting out fires every single day, how can you be of any benefit to anybody else in your life? So I've really surrendered to this trying to survive mindset, And so what happened was, after I quit drinking on June 29th of 21, so coming up on 4 years here, my wife Prudence died of alcoholism, prescription pills, grief. I don't really care what people call this stuff. They're just not here.
Yeah.
We argue over semantics, if fentanyl is a poisoning or an overdose. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell are we arguing over? You bury a child, it doesn't matter. It does, because I want to prevent it. But he's not here. It's like, I'm not going to argue with people over whether he was poisoned or overdose and what's the implication if it's worded. It's like, what would
The
you do?
semantics don't change anything. They don't bring them back. We
No.
just move forward, right?
Yeah. And that was kind of what I did. And so my wife died. So at a time from 50 to 55, when all my cohorts and friends and, my other male friends who are founders of companies are buying boats and extra houses and traveling, I'm burying my family. So I sat in my closet that Christmas with a gun to my head all weekend. This is like less than 4 years ago, Sean. This isn't ancient. This is very recent for me. And I had that gun cocked, and man, I was so ready to die. I was just so, whatever was on the other side couldn't be as bad as what I'm going through. That's what I'm telling myself. That wasn't the reality. That's a false lie. And again, as a secular person, I'm not religious, so you can say demons or the devil or what. It doesn't matter to me. I don't really care. I don't care. It's like, I didn't want to die. And I have a lot of reasons to live. And it's been a very hard 8 years for me. But I'm sure, Sean, if I sat down with you long enough, there's things in your past, right, that could have held you back. And you found a way. And so I think through storytelling and being vulnerable, that's really the secret sauce. Not a cold plunge, not the supplements you're taking, not some podcast to watch. No intent. I have a podcast too, like you. Those are great. Those are like vehicles, I guess, to get where you're at, but they're not going to get to where you're at. I stand by this, and I'll say this every day for people that are listening. You've got to put the work in. You've got to put the work in. I'm going to tell you this not to make anyone feel bad, but I'm up around 4:30, 4:45 every morning. No phones. I mean, I jump on obviously and look at texts and stuff just because my dad's 92 and he's had some health scares. I'm always just like worried that I may miss something really important. So I only look at texts and see if there's anything life-threatening. If there's not, then I go into a meditation. Sometimes I just lay in my bed. Sometimes I sit in the dark. I like to read. I have attention deficit, which is an absolute gift, and you couldn't pay me or give me a pill to get rid of it. Honestly, and it irritates the hell out of me. Irritates the hell out of me that we don't tell kids this. I don't get it. We just give them a pill and tell them it's some evil thing that if they don't take this pill, they're going to become a werewolf and eat all their friends at midnight. I'm like, it doesn't work that way for a lot of us that have it. And so, for me, it's all been about whatever tools I have internally, like how I can use these to best adapt, to evolve, to grow, to keep learning, to make mistakes, to fall down, to get back up, not compare myself to other people, and try to find some sense of peace and not happiness. I mean, someone asked me at a conference, is your goal to make people happy in your life? I'm like, no, cocaine does that. I say, why the hell do I want to make people happy? I'm not a hope dealer, It's like, no, I'm looking for joy and peace and awe and solace, and reverence, and screw happiness. I mean, it's just such a dumb goal in my mind because it's so short term. And drugs and alcohol and gambling can give you happiness. Pornography, all that can give you happiness. Is that really what I'm trying to do at Brightn, is to make people happy? No, that's not our mission.
There's so much more to life, like long-term things, like you mentioned, joy and peace and like fulfillment, that sort of thing, that don't come from those short-term happiness type ideas. And I love what you said. Thanks again for sharing your journey with us today. I love what you said about essentially not dwelling on the past, but pushing forward in the future. We can argue about the semantics of what happened, all these things we've overcome, but the fact of the matter is the most important thing is what we do today, how we continue to overcome. And I love that you talked about your journey of after experiencing those grief, we tend to turn inwards, right? And then after you struggled with alcoholism for years and years before and after the passing of your family, finally you were able to turn outward. Obviously, through Brightn, you can see that you are helping people get that long-term joy and fulfillment. Tell me a little bit more about the app.
So, as an advocate, I was really struggling on what's next. So I did a book, did this tour, did a podcast. I'd sit on LinkedIn and I'd see a post by Sean Rickenbacker and I'd say, "Hey, Sean, great post." And I'd share it and I'd comment. And, you kind of play that echo chamber where you all kind of scratch each other's back. And I'm like, now I can't sit still. It's like, I don't want to, I got to do something bigger. So I did that RV, bought the RV, went around the United States. And as I was doing that, as that was coming to an end, I was in Little Rock, Arkansas at a KOA, and my son was we were talking about harm reduction, because we handed out Narcan, we handed out bags. We went to tent cities, like numerous tent cities. In Delaware, I handed out kind of bags with the lieutenant governor, which was a cool experience for my boys to be out there. She had no security. She was the lieutenant governor of Delaware. It's amazing, to watch people that really care. And so I did that. And then I'm sitting at a KOA and my son goes, "Dad, what's next?" And I go, "I don't know." And he's like, "Well, you're a harm reductionist." I go, "Yeah, I'm trying to get people to live sometimes it's an hour." I mean, if my son would have had Narcan, if he'd have been encouraged to do drugs with friends, and, we promote designated drivers, and alcohol's been more destructive than drugs can be on society because it's accepted. Kidney failures and drunk drivings and all the abuse that goes in marriages because of drunk people. It's like, so we promote drunk drivers or designated drivers with alcohol, but with drugs, you have to sit in a hotel room by yourself and stick needles in your arm. Right? That's what my son did. There's something, I'm not encouraging drug use, and I'm not saying it should be legalized, but we certainly shouldn't stick people in hotel rooms by themselves with needles in their arms. And sure, I know he did that on his own, but if there would have been a community where there were people that are really trying to get off it, just one more hit. I know they all say that, but a lot of people, that is their last hit. I said that December 24th of 17 in front of the mirror. Well, I haven't drank since. So if I had died that day, I would never have made it. All this great stuff that's happened in my life. So I do believe that every addict, every alcoholic, everybody that's struggling, they're going to tell you, right, 1,000 times, today's the day, but maybe it is. And who are you to say it's not? And so I'm a harm reductionist, I will be that way to the rest of my life. And if you bury two people you care about, I think you would be a harm reductionist as well. And if you're not, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what more evidence you need to try to believe in human flourishing. I don't get it. And so my son said, harm reduction. And I said, I want to help young adults. That's kind of where I want to get started. I want to be upstream. I don't want to be treatment, because 80% of the startups, nonprofits, books, podcasts is all based on treatment. And you're seeing a little bit of more emphasis now on pre-treatment, not prevention. There's a big difference in my mind. Prevention is fear-based. Don't do drugs, you'll die, Sean. Don't do this, you'll do this. Everything's fear-based. There's no love and inspiration and empathy in a story of don't do drugs, you'll die, Yeah. And so that's kind of what the idea was behind Brightn. And so as a financial advisor, I would take your money, I would do a financial plan, right? And I would say, okay, Sean, based on your age and your marriage and your kids and your mortgage and all that, you should have 40% stocks, 20% bonds, the rest is in real estate and in crypto and whatever, right? In the investment world, it's called diversification. And those are asset classes, stocks, bonds, and real estate. I get thrown into mental health, which I despise that term. It's mental wellness.
Yep.
I don't even like the word mental. When I grew up, mental meant you were crazy.
There's so much stigma there, right?
Yeah. So you're not going to see mental wellness on our stuff for very long. And so I got to thinking, if I built the world's or the nation's first mental wellness planning app, like a financial planning app, if I did that, what would be the 3 human asset classes that I would want to invest in? Because all the mental wellness and mental health space was, for my first, introduction to it, was everything was acute, everything was episodic. And here is the mindset. You have 3 kids, you cross your fingers. Then none of them have a problem. You just kick those cans down. We're not going to have these conversations because there's no problem yet, right? And that's how I raised my family. Well, then there's a problem. Come rushing in to save them. Come rushing in to take Seth to the doctor. My wife died with 12 prescription bottles next to her bed. Just the whole system let both of them down. And so I thought to myself, if I were to build an app and we invested in human flourishing, what would my 3 asset classes, my human asset classes be? Health, wealth, and purpose. So that's my diversified portfolio for humanity, is investing heavily in these areas of increasing your confidence level, your knowledge level in a way that's engaging but not addicting. So gamifying our app was important, putting on things like streaks, accumulating points that you can cash in to plant a tree, clean the coral reefs, feed a lost pet, things that give you a sense of purpose, which is one of our 3 tenets, health, wealth, and purpose. We can do that. So as you're working on your mental wellness and you're accumulating points and you're doing tasks and you're have your daily plan and your AI journaling, AI mood tracking, our whole app is AI. Now you can use your rewards, your points, to do good. And in a generation that is the largest generation in human history, 2.56 billion humans are Gen Z, third of the world's population, and they are statistically the most lost, anxious, depressed generation in human history. And where does being lost come from? Well, isolation, lack of connection, and no purpose. So if you get up in the morning and you feel like you're contributing to humanity, whether it's helping an elderly person across the road or an injured bird ran into your window, fell to the ground stunned, and you just picked it up and held it. There's no drug that can make you feel that good because it's authentic from the universe. It's a gift. And these are things that are free and abundant. You don't need a cold plunge for this.
Yeah.
It's like these quick hack today with especially Gen Z, everything's got to be a quick hack. It takes 66 days for a behavior to become a habit. Think about that. 2 months. You got to put the work in, and nobody's doing that anymore. And so going back to the app, that was the idea. The genesis behind it was to create this thing that would allow people to come into this ecosystem, a lot of self-direction, self-guidance, self-assessing, not self-diagnosis, because we're not treatment, but in an autonomous learning way, Sean. So when you're in the Brightn ecosystem, there's all these things you can keep learning and keep watching videos and get points. And the next evolutions are going to be really amazing. Conversational companion AI. So you could talk to Marcus Aurelius as your AI companion, Abe Lincoln, Harriet Tubman. So we're just trying to really think of ways that we can take mental health, move it to mental wellness, and then ultimately get it to human flourishing. Because words matter.
Absolutely. One thing I'm considering, and this isn't a question I had planned by any means, but it sounds like, you mentioned the 3 different things that leads to Gen Z feeling lost. There's the isolation, lack of purpose, etc. I think that it sounds like a lot of those things can be solved by being involved with your community. Is that the sort of thing that the Brightn app encourages then?
Yeah, I think I would almost reframe how you position that. There really is nothing to solve.
Yeah.
It's more of experiencing. It's more of aware of the journey. You're not on a path, you are the path.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's deep philosophical introspection through my stoicism that I practice. There is no path. Nobody's ever had the exact same similar experiences I've had, unless this is a simulation and we just keep living the same life over and over.
Yep.
That would suck. Although I would love to come back and do this again, but with the knowledge I have,
Yep.
But it's like, I don't think there's anything to solve because nothing's broken, And I think as an adult with children, I think we're wired to always think we need to come in and save them. And that permeates in all aspects of society. We just feel like we need to save everything. But if we had this different mindset that there's really nothing to save, you, Sean, are perfect exactly the way you are. Can you have a more enjoyable experience on this planet for the limited amount of time that you are alive? Yeah, you can. All of us can. But do you need to be solved? No. Are you broken? No. And I think I've like really changed the way I reframe things when I talk to young people. It's like, even death. Today my post on LinkedIn was about death anniversaries, and I'm coming up on 4 weeks as my wife's 4-year, and then 4 months after that will be my mom's and my son's 8-year, and my mom's 4-year. But it's like, in cosmic terms, it's just another day. The universe knows no such thing as time. It's a human construct. We put 24 hours into. So it's like there is no death day. There's no birthdays. There just is. And it's helped me deal with grief and trauma, because I used to dread those days. I used to dread them, because I'd go on LinkedIn and see everybody's happy pictures of Sean and his spouse and their kids at Disneyland. And I'm like, I had all that. Now I don't. Woe is me. It's like, get that little violin out, Jeff. Invite all your negative friends over. Let's get drunk. It's like, that's how I lived for a long time after Seth died. And through a few things, and I'd be happy to share probably the one thing that's really changed my trajectory. But I work really hard, Sean. I mean, really hard. Almost 2 hours a day working out. I can't run outside because my knees and back are kind of shot. So I use my elliptical. Infrared sauna, maybe 30 minutes a day. No TV whatsoever. I don't watch any TV. Where I get my news, I don't need to have news in my life.
That might be a little bit more wellness for you, right? Is being able
Yeah.
to.
I figure if there's a meteor coming to the Earth, I'm pretty sure you would have told me by now.
Yep.
You know, I don't get into conspiracy theories. I don't, I do occasionally get sucked into the TikTok rabbit hole, and I'll be like an hour later going, geez, okay, get off here,
Yep. Yep.
So, it's like, I'm human. I have the same needs for dopamine and all that as everyone does. But it's like, at 59, I call it earned wisdom.
Mm.
I kind of feel like now I kind of have a pretty good grasp on what makes me tick and what doesn't. And I'm highly addictive personality. I had a gambling addiction for 20 years too, on top of my alcoholism. So I know that I have a high predisposition to get addicted quickly. So I have to be aware when I start down the road. Like, I can go to a casino now. I can lose a couple $100, but it's always tempting to go up to that cashier and get my checkbook out and show my ID and get a check for $5,000. I could do that, but I've learned now that there's no joy on the other side of that check, even if I won, because I would end up losing that eventually. So I think the moral of the story for all your followers and listeners out there is that, this is just my story. It's not any more tragic than anyone else. Matter of fact, I hate that word tragedy. It's unfortunate. It's unnecessary. But the outcome was highly preventable, and it was highly predictable. Both deaths were. My death was, or potential death was. So whatever someone can glean from my story to make their lived experience better, because I have stolen so many pieces of other people's stories to get to where I'm at, that I kind of feel I need to pay that forward. But I'm not doing it in a manner where I want Sean to go, man, Jeff, I feel so bad for you. It's horrible what you went through, but I'm really proud of how. It's like, no, that ship is so.
Yep.
I burned that bridge. I've sank that ship. What I want you to say is, Jeff, man, how can I help you?
Yeah, totally.
Let's talk more. And you did. I met you at a booth. You and I connected. I didn't know anything about you. I was probably thinking about the next person that was behind you that wanted to talk to me. And so you came up, and there was a short conversation. You asked me to come on your show, and now we've developed this little relationship. And that's how you are helping me, is giving me a platform to share my story, and then to continue where this goes. I have no idea where these things go from. I mean, our biggest contract we signed with a pharmacy benefit management company started off very innocently with no potential to work together. I got off the Zoom going, this is a pharmacy benefit company. We're a youth mental health app. There's nothing here. 6 months later, multi-million-dollar 3-year contract. Right. It's just like, because the demand is so high that I think what we've built plugs in places in schools. It can sports teams. It can be in businesses, EAP programs, standalone. Direct to consumer works well. We have a subscription model. So people just want to buy this on their own. They can just download it, Brightn Wellness on the App Store. It's 20 cents a day. 20 cents a day. And if somebody can't see that this 20 cents a day isn't an expense, but it's an investment, then I don't know what I can do. Because if I have a gym membership and it's $50 a month and I never go, then it becomes a cost, right?
Yep.
But if I go, same $50, now what is it?
It's an investment in yourself.
There you go. So it's like anyone can play any mental games they want. If you want to go to Starbucks and spend $8 on a latte and convince yourself that's an investment, that's up to you. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a half-hour little caffeine investment you need, but $8. Do that 2-3 times a week. Do that for 4 weeks in a month. And you're telling me you can't afford 20 cents a month on a AI-driven mental wellness app that we've shown 60% of the people that use it have a better experience than before they jumped on? I can't sell you.
Yeah.
I'd say if it's free, you wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
So don't blame the app. It's like, that's why don't blame what we've built until you've tried it. And the only way you can try it, and it sounds like a sales pitch, and maybe it is to download and try it, or be lucky enough that one of our business partnerships has you as an employee that you get it for free in your benefit package.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can tell people is to try it, see if they like it. And we're having more people that enjoy the ride than those that don't, and those that don't, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. We aren't going to be the end all be all for every human on the planet, but more people than not are really thanking us for what we've built. And it's an arrow in that quiver. And I mention this all the time about mental health, is that, you've got this demon or this thing you're trying to slay, whether it's grief, trauma, abuse, alcohol, vaping, whatever it is, bankruptcy, divorce. And you've got this quiver on your back that you carry throughout your life. And the goal is to have as many arrows in that quiver. And so, yeah, if you are a cold plunger, infrared sauna, meditator, no toxicity in your life, you don't follow politics, you stay neutral on a lot of positions because taking a side creates animosity and problems in your life. Those are all arrows in your quiver that when this thing shows up, like it does for me, like it did over Thanksgiving when I had very dark thoughts of ending my life again, I just went to my quiver and pulled out arrows. And for the time being, I kept the beast off my front porch. Yeah. That's how I look at this.
It sounds like the Brightn app is all about giving those arrows to your quivers, especially for young people. As this is going to date me, obviously, but as a very old Gen Z, I really appreciate what you're doing for my generation. I think especially with the generations that are coming up right now, the Gen Alphas, that will eventually be in that realm of using apps like Brightn to increase their wellness overall. I really appreciate the work that you're doing to try to invest in young people, give them the tools, give them the arrows to change their lives in the long run.
Yeah, I've said back in the day, Sean, that there's really two ways that you change behavior for people. You scare them or you inspire them. And that's it. One is short-term, inauthentic, not genuine. The other's long-term, authentic, and genuine. Inspiration is infinite. Fear, again, it can be infinite as well if you're in that loop where you're just constantly in a fear and scarcity mindset. So everything on the app is intentional. We don't even call people on our app users. We call them thrivers. Mm. So I was pitching the app to some guys in Chicago about a year ago, some VC conference, which I have a whole different opinion on some of these people. Not all good, to be honest with you.
Totally get that.
Yeah, they just doling out other people's money and they think they're God. But he asked me very arrogantly, how many users do you have? A room full of like 50 VCs and founders. I said, we don't have any. You're a pin drop. I said, yeah, we got 1,000 thrivers though. And you can see everyone in the room kind of turn around and look at him like, this guy just got you.
Yep.
But my point is, words matter. If it doesn't matter, why do pronouns matter for Gen Zers?
Yeah.
I mean, they matter. They
Words have
matter a
such
lot.
impact.
Yeah. And so I can fight it, put a square peg in a round hole,
Yep.
or we can change our whole ecosystem we built at Brightn to be love, empathy, inspiration. See, when Seth died, I got asked to go to high schools all over the country, Sean, and for a year. I didn't charge anything. I had to go talk to these kids, right? I had to what? Save them.
Yep.
I just talked about that problem that I couldn't save my son. I'm going to go save all these kids, someone else's sons and daughters, right?
Mhm.
I'd go to these big assemblies, hundreds and hundreds of kids, and I'd have pictures of Seth, and, I'd tell the story, and I'd cry, and I'd beg and plead, and people would come up, and there'd be lines of kids hugging me, everything. And I get in my car, and I'm like, man, your story is depressing. It's sad. It's there's no love in telling these kids don't do drugs or they'll die. And so I said, I was in Battle Creek, but I don't think it's Battle Creek in Utah, I think.
Pleasant Grove, perhaps.
I can't remember what it was. I just saw pictures the other day, but it was I had to fly out there, take like a 2-hour drive, and again, I did it on my own dime. But it was but in that parking lot where I sat there, could have been Idaho too, but I sat in that parking lot after my assembly in tears. And I just said, I pulled the mirror down. I just said, dude, you got the worst story of anybody I've ever heard, because your story's all full of fear and sad and dread and despair and devastation. I'm like, time to step your game up. So that's where I decided I didn't want to be prevention anymore. So I shifted and moved to empowerment. So we're an empowered youth mental wellness app. That's what Brightn is. And instead of being angry fentanyl dad, now I'm not out there trying to tell kids not to do anything. I share my story, but not out of fear.
One thing I'll say right now, it sounds like the difference between a story that's full of fear and a story that is inspiring is a story that's full of fear is about something that happened to you, and an inspiring story is what you did about it.
Or as you said, something happened for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I say at the end of my talks, the greatest question in the world is how you answer this question. Do things happen to you, or do things happen for you? So you're right, Sean, you're right. And that's the stoicism again. So you're exactly right, Sean. It's like, I used to tell myself, why me? Why me? I'm a good guy. I've been mostly honest my whole life. I don't steal and cheat. I've done things the right way, alcoholic, gambler. Yeah, whatever. I'm human. I'm not a cyborg. Why me? Why take my son, God? If there is a God, why, again, I don't believe in God. So I'm playing a narrative that I think a lot of people do. It's like, why me? If there is a God, why my son? Why my wife? Why put me in that closet? And then I started thinking, why not me? Why not me? Obviously, or apparently, I didn't kill myself. So apparently I can take this. Apparently I'm strong enough to move on. And maybe my brush with suicide was a test to see if I could have the fortitude to see life in a different lens. And so there's growth in all this. And if someone gave me a pill right now, I'm going to try to be careful how I say this so it doesn't sound bad. And someone gave me a pill and said, Jeff, you can take this pill, and everything that's happened to you, you can't bring him back. So they're still going to be gone. But all the suffering and all the pain and everything you went through, this pill, just memory, erase it from your mind. I wouldn't take it. Wouldn't take it.
You learn too much.
Wouldn't take it. There's so much. I'm such a better human being. I'm a better friend. I'm a better CEO, founder of a startup with my employees. I'm so grateful to have met you, to be in Oklahoma City. Do I still struggle? Of course I do. But I tell this when I talk too, is that when's the last time, Sean, you've ever had the worst cry you've ever had in your life? You don't have to answer this question, but let's say you're in your kitchen and it's midnight or it's 8 a.m. and you just got that feeling where just your guts are ripped out, your heart is stopped, and you're crying and you're crying and you're crying, and your pet comes over and tries to lick the tears off your face, which my Labrador did. I had to get up and shut him out of the door because I'm like, dude, I'm not done yet. My dog was so great. We put him down last year. But I'm like, Camish, you got to leave me alone, man. I'm not done grieving. It's like,
Yeah.
But when have you ever done that and felt worse? Ever. When have you ever gone to the gym and had the hardest workout? You wanted to leave and one more set. And then you sat in your car and you felt worse. It's like, it's not possible. It's not possible. And I've survived 100% of every worst thing that's ever happened in my life. What makes you think I can't survive the next? Because I'm a fool to think my phone could ring right now. My dad could die. Yeah. It's like we're always just we're one call away.
Yep.
The moments before I got that call about Seth's death, and then 30 seconds later, I've never been the same.
I think that's super inspiring, and every person listening here, you've got a 100% success rate of getting to this point, getting through the hard things you've been through.
Yeah. And again, I just noticed for the first time, Opus on your shirt. That was the name of our cat, my first cat I ever had. And as an alcoholic, I named my cat Opus and my dog Camus. My two favorite Cabernet. Opus 1 was my favorite Cabernet. So there was a meaning why you and I had to meet.
Yep, absolutely. Jeff, I want to be respectful of your time, so I want to ask you just a couple more questions.
Yeah, I'm fine. Actually, I have enough time, so we're good.
Okay, perfect. I want to ask, where do we go from here? What's the vision for Brightn and the movement in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think for us at Brightn, the next evolution is in the employee benefits space, because Gen Z has already replaced baby boomers in the marketplace. And in 5 to 7 years, they're going to replace Xers and millennials. And they are, again, like I said, the largest population in human history. So there's a tidal wave coming to the workplace. And if you're an employer out there listening to this, or you're going to be an employer and you don't understand this, that Gen Z is the first generation in human history to have mental health as their number one New Year's resolution. Think about that. That's like my applause to your generation, because, man, when I was in high school in the 70s, no one talked about this stuff. And if you did, you were mental. You're an athlete, dude. You played basketball, football. You're a tough guy. Can't cry. It's like things have really shifted, and I like the fact we're talking about it more, but it's getting worse. Raising awareness is kind of a dead horse, because raising awareness isn't working in this space. We have to bring attention to, and you do that by having this in the hands of as many people as we possibly can. And our quickest way to scale is through the employee benefit space. So I think that's the next, evolution of the app, is to now we've got a couple of these partnerships already inked. So now it's just finding more and then replicating that, and then giving these employees that right now maybe don't fit our market, but in a very short amount of time will. And employees are demanding employers provide more than just a meditation yoga mat and 15 extra minutes at lunch to walk around the cement that they poured a little circle in the park. That's not going to work. And I think there's a massive opportunity to be in this space we're in, not treatment. That's 80%. That's kind of a saturated market right now. We don't need more recovery community centers. We don't need more fire chiefs. Like I said, we need to stop these fires from starting in the first place. I think there's a massive underserved opportunity in the pre-treatment, empowerment, and inspiration space when it comes to mental wellness. And that's what Brightn is feeding into that right now.
Would you say, I know you've been talking about upstream pre-treatment. Would you say that Brightn is also beneficial for people that are post-treatment? Really?
Absolutely. Fair question. I love it, because we're not coming to market as treatment. However, 1 in 5, 20% of our thrivers at any given time are in crisis mode. So, what's crisis mode? That's subjective. So we have off ramps, or we're trying to find, It's just something I'm working with Ryan Hampton and some other people in this recovery community that are very well known, is to have the ability on onboarding. Right now, all we ask is your birth date so we can gauge, we don't want, there's content on this. Maybe, I don't know, states have different laws for like 12 and 13-year-olds on apps. So we got to be careful. So that's the only question we really ask. But I think if we had your zip code, and Sean, you're in, where are you located right now?
I'm in Utah.
Okay. So you're in Utah and you're on the app and you talk about potentially harming yourself or going to school the next day and shooting up the school or something in your AI journaling. We've built in protocols. We have a 3-tiered protocol where the first protocol is to send a text making sure we verify that, what you said or whatever is, you feel that way. And then we want to be able to provide the off ramps in your area. And that's why I'm trying to get this army of collaborators and supporters around the country that can partner with us. And then what that actually looks like, I guess we'd have to build that out. I don't know yet what that model looks like, because I felt that would be something we can do later. At first, we have to make the app functional and make it work. And then I can add these off ramps. And we're at that point now where I need to start doing that, because every hour in the United States, 38 families get that phone call that I got twice. Every hour. So we've been in here almost an hour. 38 families, Sean, just getting up, golf course, at the lake, at the park, at work, get a phone call, pick it up, thinking it's a call from their brother or their mom. And Sean, you got to sit down. Your daughter's dead. That's unacceptable to me. That's every hour just in the United States. That's my sense of urgency right there. I'm 59 too. I don't have 20 years to build a company like I did before. And I've got it set in my I don't have 20 minutes to do this. I do it right now. And so if anything keeps me up, it's getting this in the hands of more humans than I can handle, so we can keep scaling, because I need to get more arrows in these quivers for these people to get into tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow's their sober day. Maybe tomorrow's the day they start going to the gym. Maybe, like I said, that's where I stand. It's taken a whole lifetime to get there. I'm not what I thought I'd be doing,
Yeah.
a few years ago, but here I am.
Again, thanks so much for sharing your story, Jeff. It's been truly inspiring, and hearing about the journey that you're on, and of course the Brightn app as a whole. One last question, keep a little light. Any books you recommend for anybody listening?
A lot. Well, obviously you can read my book, Selfless Plug. My books, I audio booked it on Audible, and I also wrote it a year after Seth died. It's called This One's for You, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. I think the audio version is probably more powerful because you get to really hear my voice. But the books I read personally, I love Meditations. I'm reading it for the third time. Three different authors, like a different interpretations, by Marcus Aurelius. A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle is another good one. Emptiness Dancing by Adyashanti. That's another really good spiritual book. Those are 3 that come to mind.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check those out. I love those kind of like books to try to inspire and self-help, etc. So
Me too.
For our listeners today who want to download the Brightn app, available, I presume, on iOS and Google Play.
It's Brightn. So it's her actual name. I don't know if I told your listeners where the name came from.
Oh, you didn't?
Okay. When Seth died, so that's Seth right there, and that's Prudence. 3 weeks after he died, his absolutely beautiful, angelic baby was born, daughter. She's 8 now, and she's the love of my life, and her name is Brightn, Brighton. And so the app is spelled Brightn. We took the O out to protect her, but this is named in honor of Seth and my wife, but also just, she could have been, I have to laugh because she could have been named Linda or Tina or Diane, but of all names, it's like Brightn. It's like, oh man, it just couldn't be any more beautiful than to have my granddaughter named Brightn. And then she'll have to figure out all this on her own. My job isn't to fix her. She ain't broken. She's going to have some a little bit harder challenges than some of her peers had, but it's going to be an opportunity for her to become the young woman she's destined to be in a way that she can use all this death and as inspiration, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Jeff. It's been super awesome having you on the podcast. And yeah, for all the listeners out there, of course, read Jeff's book, download the Brightn app. Like you said, it's 20 cents a day, and you'll be able to increase your own wellness. So thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks for your time, Sean. Appreciate it.